Hello everybody and welcome to our 12th IELTS webinar. We are very excited today for today's topic and today's presenter. We have an esteemed IELTS presenter and a great topic that isn't new, but it's always evolving. Let me tell you a little bit about our presenter today, Claire Bartlett. She's a French teacher at Clear Springs High School and also teaches online at Middlebury Interactive Languages. She's the past director of the Language Resource Center at the University of Rice, and she's also the past IELTS president. So please give a warm virtual round of applause for Claire. And go ahead and turn your microphone on, and the spotlight is yours.
Thank you very much, Evan. That was a very nice introduction. Yes, so I think it's important for you to know that I have a varied background as much in secondary education as higher education. I actually have a little bit more experience in higher ed education than secondary since I just moved to secondary education a year ago. I am teaching in two places, full-time at Clear Springs High School and part-time with Middlebury Online. But what I will talk about today will be mostly what I do at Clear Springs High School. None of what I will talk about today is actually done in my teaching online with Middlebury. This does not mean that it couldn't be done online. It's simply that my experience with it is just e-portfolio I use with my face-to-face students in my regular classes. So I just wanted to clarify this. First of all, I want to thank you for all the questions you sent. When you registered, you sent Evan some questions, and I read all these questions. I will attempt to answer all these questions as I go along, but if I fail to do so, please remind me and post something in the chat room. I think most of the questions you asked I actually addressed in the PowerPoint, but if I don't, please remind me to address them again. So thank you for your interest and your question. Okay. I wanted to know how many of you are currently using ePortfolio. And if you do, if you just please raise your hand or give me a smiley face in the chat room so I can have a sense of how many of you have experience with ePortfolio and can contribute to our conversation today. Okay, so we have one person, two. Russ, thank you. Just two people? Okay, very good. Well, thank you. So please, both of you, feel free to interrupt and contribute any comment that you may have. This is more of a collaboration than a one-way stream. So today we'll talk about what an e-portfolio is or can be or could be or should be, integration of the e-portfolio to the curriculum, rubrics and assessment, and technology tools. So I know one of the questions referred to what platform I use. I will address that in great detail at the last part of my presentation. So first I'm going to talk about what is an e-portfolio, or what could be, what should it be. So I would like you to submit some suggestion of what you think it might be, or what you think it is, and put that in the chat for me before I tell you what I think it might be. I'd like to hear from you, or read from you in this case. So if you want to post in the chat a few suggestions, sentences, that would be great. It doesn't have to be very elaborate or very long. An electronic collection of student work, excellent. Portfolio in digital format, very good. Sarah, sample of student work that show what they are able to do with the language, excellent. Pretty much that's what it is in a very short summary form. So I have here a few quotes from people. Helen Barrett seems to be quite versed in this field. I've published quite a lot of articles. Some of you have asked me for articles. I don't have very many, but there's a lot on the subject, and not necessarily just for languages, but for ePortfolio in general. So as you see, purposeful collection of students' work. Okay, so that's what somebody here just posted in the chat. That is correct. There's a more detailed description here from Dina Abamondi. So the main point of her description is selective and purposeful collection of student work, demonstrates students' ability, represent a learning history, brings together the curriculum, and also form of assessment. Okay, that's very important, form of assessment. I would call it an alternative form of assessment. Dina Gordon from Curry College, she said e-portfolio encourages student self-evaluation, helps determine student proficiency, and also determine department learning goals. That's very important. It's very useful for administrators because there's a record of what the students can actually do. So I like her point. So online, what I wrote, it could be online. Some of you wrote digital. In some university or institution, it's electronic, but not necessarily online. It can be available to just teachers, peer, parents, school administrator, or completely public. And in my case, for my students, it has a password, and I'm going to put the password in the chat here so that you will be able to go back and through the PowerPoint to access all the information and all of my students' e-portfolio. CCISD is the password. I have to tell you, the only reason there's a password is because I've encountered some technical challenges. But in the syllabus for the students, that the parents also read and so do the administrator, I note that the portfolio are public. So as far as my students are concerned, they treat it as a public work. Okay? Collection of students' artifacts. Let me get my little hands here so I can show you where I am. Showcase of students' best work, alternative assessment, and assessment over time. I have to say that in my case, it is not just a showcase of best work, it's also a working tool for me. I ask the students to post a lot, not just their best work. This way it gives them sort of an electronic workbook, and it keeps them on their toes. So why? What would we want to have? And that's, I added this slide following a question of one of the participants. What evidence do we have that e-portfolio are helpful, work, improve learning? What is the purpose? If you would please make some comments to that effect and let me know why you think you might want to do this. Please give a suggestion in the chat. Give students a way to see their progress. Excellent, I agree. Anybody else? Performance documentation, excellent. Okay. I would like students to be able to see the improvement over time, yes. Effective form of constructivist learning, absolutely, and Sarah, a way to see students' progress. Excellent, thank you so much. What I have in my list, and again, it's not an exhaustive list, motivating students. I think that's a very, very strong component of the reason why you would want to do that. Because it provides students an external audience, other than the teacher, their writing, I think, in the quality, and I've read a couple articles about that. I'm sorry, I don't remember the author. But I think that's, there's been some research about this, again, not just in languages, but in other fields, that the quality of the student work greatly improves because of the audience. Peers evaluation, pride, show off their work. And again, as some of you mentioned, easy to see progress. What I add to my e-portfolio is a social media component. So some e-portfolio are just plain, flat e-portfolio websites, but I add each student has their own blog, and students comment on each other's blog, and some of the work is posted both under different category on the e-portfolio and also in the blog, so that the students can receive comments on their work. And this interactivity greatly improves and makes it more fun to have an e-portfolio. So it's not a flat, standing by itself e-portfolio. My next question is, what would you like to see on a student e-portfolio? If you'd please type your suggestion, that would be great. I like the previous comment from Kathy Jo, to keep the collection. Yes, important. My students keep them from year to year, and after they graduate, they can keep those. Speaking, video, writing, excellent. Reflection, I like that. I do have reflection in our portfolio. Written work, spoken work, absolutely. Excellent suggestions. Okay, and reflections. Thank you, Kathy. Okay, language production, a variety of genres. Excellent. So I'm now going to talk to you about example of work and assignments that my students have posted. I will show you example of all of these. So assignments in textbook that are worth sharing. Sometime in the curriculum there is work that's required that's worthwhile for everyone to share so that people can then post their opinion about it. Role-playing skits, either in form of audio or video. Description of your dream house, for example. Web quest. I have them post these. Survey of students' hobbies. So they go around the class and ask each other a question about hobbies, and then they'll put the results of their polls on their e-portfolio. Student favorite vacation, Christmas vacation. A story, a presentation of the country, cooking, recipe, presentation on the environment, brochures, advertisements, St. Valentine's cards, poems, songs, summary of video or story or film, film reviews too. So these are just a short list of some of the things that my students post on their e-portfolio. And again, I will be showing you all of these. Thank you for your input. What type of categories, headers, would you like to see on e-portfolio? So imagine you're creating an e-portfolio for your students, or some of you are working as a facilitator and working with faculty. What would you recommend they would have as headers on their e-portfolio? If you please type your suggestion, that would be great. So obviously they would have a welcome page, the first page, hello, but what else would they have on there? What would be the categories? Or do you just see this as one plain website? Or would you see several different pages? About me, excellent, Russ. That's right, and that's what we have for my students. Introduction, welcome, homepage, about me, that's right. Home blog, presentation, podcast, excellent, Evan. Very good. One section for speaking, maybe. Very good. Interpretive skills. Karima, excellent. Interpersonal communication skill. Presentational skill. Cultural understanding. Exactly. Those are all excellent suggestions. Thank you. So here is the first. It's a screenshot, and I will give you all the links to some of my students' e-portfolio. So this is how they organize their e-portfolio, and I asked that they all put it in the same order, so it's easy for me to find them. I have over 140 students, and it takes a long time for me to read these and keep up with them and evaluate them. So the more alike they are in terms of organization, the easier it is for me. So as you can see, they have their blog. That's in the first, for these students, because I asked them, it's become such an important part of their e-portfolio, I would like to have it in the first part here. This page here that you see is a student introduction. This is a French one, beginning student after a couple weeks of school. She was able to record herself. Then we have listen and watch, so their audio and video. Read, so that would be some of their paragraph writing, stories, etc. Reflection, it's in French, self-reflection, presentation, and my preferred sites. So this is what we have so far. Some of you, I think, may have added some other components. I'm not sure. Feel free to add any if you see more or think of more. So this is an example. Here is the list of the students I'm sharing with you, but if you want to have more, I can do that. I have, as I say, 140. All of my students are required to have e-portfolio, whether it's the very first level all the way to the upper level AP. And I think they all benefit from this and enjoy doing these. So here I've given you some French 1, French 2, French 3, French 3, and French 4. And as I mentioned, the password is CCISD. I'll put it again here. So you could go on your own and access these. Okay, I'll just be going through screenshots to focus. Yeah, the links don't work, I know that. And sometimes my connection with the internet is not very good. So I'm just going to show you some screenshots. But when the presentation today is finished, you will have access to the PowerPoint and you'll be able to click and go to each of them one by one. Okay. Here's the first screenshot, another introduction page. He just wrote who he was. and then you can listen to him in French. Okay? As you could see, they all have different themes, and they organize it all differently. Here's another one. It's the introduction page. She introduced herself, and they're not shy about having a picture of themselves in their house. They really like to make it personal, as you could see. The second page I'm going to show you is Listen and View. It's, of course, everything is in French. So they have their audio, but you will see some of them also have their videos. These students here, as their video, they prepared skits, and so they included that also. Again, I require them to put all of these artifacts here because they get evaluated that way. And I will talk about the technology for all this afterwards. Presentation. Here they had a digital story, and for this level French 2, they had to tell a story about something. And so each student, and you'll be able to access all of these stories. You could see a brochure that the students actually created. Let's see on the next one, presentation. So they were talking, but this is a French 2 assignment, House of Their Dream. These students didn't draw too much, but she made a plan. And then she had a conversation with another student. You could also hear their conversation, as you could see on these screenshots. Okay? Let's see what the next one is. This is read. I put that in the read category. So they write paragraphs about things that they learn in school. Somebody mentioned culture. So that would be about Switzerland, the first paragraph. This is about Belgium. And they read a book about the Petit Nicolas, and we watched a film and then enacted and did skits about the Petit Nicolas. So that I put in that reading category, at least the summary of the text they wrote. Here is the first example. This was a photo story, French 3 level. They had to present, give a presentation, again, just in photo story, about a country in Africa. And so this is under presentation. But then I asked them to put a link on their blog so that the students in the class could comment on the students' presentation. So instead of having all my 34 or 20 students give a presentation to the class, which is tedious and time-consuming and boring, I asked each student to go and watch 4 or 5 of their classmates' presentation and make comments on their classmates. And so when you go online to see all these e-portfolio, you'll be able to see all these comments. And I will talk about how I actually read the comments and how I track these comments, because I think it's very important that the students know you're going to read their comments. Otherwise, they won't go and read other students' e-portfolio and they won't put comments. So they also receive grades and evaluation for making comments. Okay. This was a web quest, the French one, so this is in English. I feel it's important that at the level of French 1, after a few weeks, they can comment. I use Street View, and I asked them to take screenshots, so I knew they actually didn't just take pictures. I wanted them to go through Paris and have a feeling about the city, and that's part of their curriculum. Some of them made some interesting points that Paris needs to demolish their streets and make them wider. You got to keep in mind this is from Texans. They think Paris should be modernized. There are too many old buildings. I really enjoyed their comments that they made. But they really had a good feel for the traffic, the cars, because they were using Street View. And so some of them put evidence of that too. This one, she went and surveyed her classmates. And so this is on the blog, as you could see, because here you have the archive of the blog. And then she put a summary, again, French one, of what the students like to do in class. So at the top, I wrote in English, for those of you who don't speak French, what the content is about. This is film review for my French 3. They had to write a film review, and they put that in their blog so that the other students could comment and agree or disagree about their film review. That lended itself very well to a blog. Their story, they also write this in the blog. I will talk about plagiarism and copyright. You notice that they always put the source, and they make sure that they use Creative Commons or material that they have permission to use. This student talked about her New Year's in France, or rather New Year's in France versus in the United States, and they love embedding videos. So instead of me presenting videos to the class, I have them search for videos on YouTube or elsewhere and post them on their blogs, and they comment on each other's video in French. They can only be in French. Fashion show, I use Weebly, and they have a great tool with slideshow, and so these students use that to create a fashion show. We were studying fashion and clothes, and so that works very well. Here's just a straight blog. I'm not going to make any comments about this one here. They like to talk about their personal things. She went on a humanitarian project and help, and so she talked about that. So they like to be personal too. This is how I collect the comments. So under Lise, one of the header, I have the students each month to put a link. So when you click this on their page, and you will see that on the portfolio, may comment 1, 2, 3, 4. So when I evaluate them, I can click on each one of these links and see the comment and verify that they're actually going to comment on other students' blog and e-portfolios. And they receive points and grades for that as well. Here's the last category, which is self-reflection. And that's the only part that is in English. My French 4 students, the AP students, have the option to write it in French. But most of the students choose to write it in English, and you will be able to see all of this. In a few minutes, I will talk about what I asked them to write about in their reflection. So you will see that. I've also given you links, again, when you get the PowerPoints, and there are no passwords. When I was at Rice University, and I don't know if I mentioned to you, but my first presentation on ePortfolio was at Axel in 2005. So Rice has been using ePortfolio extensively for quite a few years. And so here you have very extensive example of Spanish, and a few for Chinese first semester. So you have both sides of the spectrum, beginner students and advanced students. And again, these are all web-based. Now I'm going to talk more about the integration to the curriculum, and feel free to interrupt and ask questions if you have any questions. Integration to the curriculum. So as I mentioned, I have these in all levels, 1, 2, 3, 4, AP and regular class. Some of the other teachers thought it should only be the AP students, but I feel very strongly that all students should have the opportunity. They're just going to write and speak at a different level. But I think they should all participate, and so all my classes do that. For the entire year, the assignments are completed inside and outside of class time. Most of it is outside, but some of it during class. I'll give them sometime in class. For the blogs that are their own personal blogs, I ask them to post 1 blog per week. And usually they are free to post on any topic they want, unless I've given them an assignment to post their story or their film review on their blog. So they have to post 1 blog per week and make 1 comment per week on the classmate's blog. Okay? The quantity, I expect my French 1 and 2 to write 3 to 4 sentences, and the 3 to 4 upper level paragraph length sentences. I had to specify that, otherwise they were too brief. Topics. So as I mentioned, the topics, they're free to choose most of the time. But I also ask them to use the vocabulary from the lesson. And I've put links here for you to go see, if you know French, how these students very well integrated the vocabulary from their lesson. You'll be able to tell that. As I mentioned, sometimes they are required to post class assignments on their blog. And in this case, for example, digital story, you can't really post it completely on the blog. So they put a link to the file that they posted, and they have it under presentation. And this way students can comment back on their work. So here is the dilemma: is what's a blog and what's a presentation? So as I explained, if it's a presentation that's worthwhile and I want for the students to see each other's presentation, then I'll ask them to put a link to the presentation on the blog. Because I want to invite comments from other students. And also it saves us to have all the students present to the class, which takes a long time. Blogs or presentation again. When the students know that their peers are going to review their presentation, they spend a lot more time to do a better job. So they ask first, is everybody going to look at my presentation? Are they going to go and make comments? And I say yes. This commenting situation also creates a community within the class, where the students get to know each other personally. They get to know their life, their boyfriends, their girlfriend, what they did on the weekend. And that also yields conversation in French in the class. So I like the fact that it creates that community in the class. The other advantage of posting things on the blog versus putting it in the presentation is the blog gives you a date stamp, whereas when they put it on the website, it doesn't give you a date stamp. So that's very helpful for me at the high school level. Do you have any comments that you want to enter in the chat or any questions that you would like to ask me so far? At what stage, if ever, are language errors addressed? Excellent question, Jack. Most of the time, I don't address language because I notice that they will correct each other, not on the comments, but if they sit next to each other in class, they'll point out the mistake, they'll go back and correct their mistakes. Sometime, and when I talk about assessment, I put a link in Blackboard. It becomes a Blackboard assignment, so it could be a Moodle, but we use Blackboard at our high school. And I put an entry, e-portfolio, and then I'll gather some of the most common mistakes a student might make. So for example, if they consistently forget to do verb agreement in their sentences, I will copy and paste them into Blackboard and highlight this and let them know. But I pretty much let them evolve on their own. And pretty much I can see progress. And after I've corrected them a couple times in Blackboard, then they'll usually go back and fix their mistakes. But I really want this to be free for them to be comfortable and happy and enjoying it. And I know this is controversial. Good question, Jack. It's nice to see you here. How is Cyprus? Other projects. So as I mentioned, I showed you a list of projects that they had earlier. I have included here, so you don't have to search for all of their e-portfolio, 2 digital stories. One, she's an artist, Catherine, and she drew the entire story and then commented it in French. Unfortunately, she translated it in English because she wanted to make sure all her classmates would understand. But it's very nice. You could see that. And Ashton, I think, presented about Cameroon in a very, it almost looks like a documentary. So I wanted you to be able to see that. So again, when you have the PowerPoints after today, you can go and click on these links and see each of these presentations. Deployment. So how do I teach the students how to do this? I have day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. These don't have to be consecutive days, but my classroom has laptops for every student. I have classes up to 35 students and I have 38 laptops in my classroom. And I sort of teach a modified flipped classroom, and so they are on their laptop a lot. And whether if they do group work, they can create skits using Google Docs, so they use their laptops a lot. In January, all our students are receiving tablets, and so we'll be using tablets and laptops. So they'll be able to move around the classroom more easily instead of being fixed with their laptop. Our laptops are so old that the plugs, they have to be plugged, and so the students can't move easily around. So on day 1, when I decide to start, usually by the 3rd or 4th day of class, I'll teach them how to create the website. Again, I use Weebly, and I'll talk about the technology later. And I'll teach them how to create the headers. And on that day, they can start creating their self-introduction. They've already learned in French, my name is, I am 3 years old or 20 years old. They only know enough, maybe at the end of the week. So that's day 1. On day 2, we use Vocaroo a lot. We also use Audacity, but most of my students prefer Vocaroo because it's much simpler to use. So they record with Vocaroo, they save the file as MP3, and they upload it to Weebly on their homepage of self-introduction. As you saw some of the pages I showed you, they have their recording, and it's very, very easy to do. So it doesn't take very long. Again, day 1 doesn't take the whole class. It takes some of the class. And day 2, again, just takes some of the class, maybe 20 minutes. On day 3, they learn how to post a blog. Most students don't know how to post a blog. So we go over that together. And then I teach them how to write comments and how to link the comments and where to link the comments. So I have a special header that's called read. And at the bottom of the read page, this is where they link all their comments. So I can verify that they're going to make comments. Okay? And 4, I talk about plagiarism and digital citizenship. That's very important. And the first few e-portfolio that evaluate, I give them points for doing a good job with that. Putting credits, making sure that the material they use is Creative Commons or copyright free. And by the third e-portfolio, I don't need to do that anymore. They're very respectful of that process. Again, feel free to post questions if you have any. I also have blog of the month, so when I find students have very good blog, I'll have the students come in front of the class and share it with the whole class. Rubrics and assessments. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. What I'm going to share with you is 5 or 6 slides that are really not the presentation of today, but these are PowerPoint slides that I share with the students. And by the way, when I teach, for every day I have PowerPoints, and I put all the PowerPoints on Blackboard before class starts. So the students can upload the PowerPoints on each of their laptops, and they can follow the class individually on their laptop. I found that it helps them focus instead of daydreaming and looking up on the board for what's going on. And most of the time I only teach in front of the class 10 minutes, and the rest of the time they work in group or they do projects on their laptop. Or they speak and do conversation and skits. So again, these next 5 or 6 PowerPoints are something that I share with the students. First one is how the portfolio should look. I translated it in English for you, but the students don't have this in English. So they have a header welcome, a header listen view, a header comments, and they put also presentation in there. Presentation, self-reflection, my blogs, and my preferred site. So they are required to have all of these categories. And that's on the PowerPoints that they have. Welcome page should have a paragraph introducing themselves and a recording, so that's a requirement. And again, they have that PowerPoint to tell them that's what they're supposed to do. Écoutez, regardez, listen, and view. On that date, this was e-portfolio 3, they had to have 2 conversations recorded in class. Okay? They had to interview a celebrity, and then they had to post also their activity 5. So this way I also make sure that they complete these activities. They can't hide in the class, they have to be posted. Lisez, so this is where they put their comments, and the Lisez point section is going to be 30 points. And the way I evaluate the comments, I give 10 points for the comments they made, 10 points for the French, and 10 points for the creativity. Okay? And when they had 12 comments, this was a total of 3 months. I think this one was at the end of the 3rd month of ePortfolio. This was an ePortfolio 3. And I'll give you more detail about how frequently I assess this in a few minutes. Presentations. If I ask them to give a specific presentation for that particular ePortfolio, they'll get 20 points for that presentation. And then I give them specific detail of what's expected for that presentation. Reflection. On this particular portfolio, it was 10 points, but by the end of the semester, it was 20 points. I specified for the in English and what do they write about, okay? And that evolves. What works, what doesn't work for them for learning French? What do they do at home to improve their French? What are they learning French and not Spanish? What are you planning to do with your French? Any comments like that? Basically, it's life learning goals and talking about that. And it also helps me to see how much they enjoy the class because they put comments about that. And then my blog, that's 40 points. I give them more points because they have to create and initiate. So again, if they have all the blog posts, they get 10 points. If the French is good, they get 20 points. And if they are creative, they get 10 points. So that's a total of 40 points. Okay. Again, that's still the slide that I give them. And finally, the creativity. How do we evaluate creativity? Are all the elements there, the sentences there? Do you have good ideas of topics for the blog? Are you using vocabulary of your level? Basically, are they using Google Translate, or are they using vocabulary from the class? And are they using a variety of sentences, or do they keep repeating the same thing? I don't have any problem with students copying from each other. And that's a very nice thing. In high school, when they have to do worksheets and things like this, they just copy of each other. With this, they don't copy because it's on the internet and everybody else can see it. So that is very helpful for me. That should be the last slide that I give the students. Now, how do I grade them? And this is for a general ePortfolio. So I ask them to submit ePortfolio once a month through Blackboard. Let me jump to that slide and I'll come back to this one. So I put, this is my Blackboard test section. So you see these are tests that they have on Blackboard. And I put an ePortfolio link like that once a month. And then in ePortfolio, I have a rubric. And this is the general rubric after the initial ePortfolio. So once I know that they know they do this conscientiously, I use the Blackboard rubrics to assess them. And here I have blogs, quantity, dates, length, French, creativity, 50 points, comments, 30 points, and reflection, 20 points. If for that particular ePortfolio they had a big presentation, then I will change the points. But again, they have 8 ePortfolio assignments a semester, 1 a month, and they count as major grade, like a test grade. So they weigh very heavily in the curriculum. It's not just something, one of the participants asked questions, how do you encourage the students to do that? I value this as much as their test. And that's how I get them to do that. And the students are happy. The only students who don't do very well with that are the low-performing students. They're embarrassed about their poor skills. I really have to approach them, and some of them refuse to do it, and they receive zeros, and have to write to their parents as to why they receive a 0. So here we go back to the point system. As I mentioned, are all elements required and included? Are all the conversations there? Are the reflections there? If they put video, if they go to YouTube in French and find French video, that's very good for creativity points. Is all the copyright information, etc., etc. Okay, so I've already talked about the rubric. And that's overall how I assess them. And I would be happy to take questions because I'm sure I did not cover everything you wanted to have about the assessment. What are your class size? Ooh, very good question. Between 30 and 34, and have 6 classes a day. So it's a lot of ePortfolio to read. It takes me a long time. But I've learned to be pretty fast at it. And I'm going to start contemplating the peer evaluation. And I actually did that for the last ePortfolio. I had my French 4 and 3. Prepared charts, Excel spreadsheet that they shared Google, where they wrote and read some of the students and make sure that all the contents were there. So they'll say student X, did it have reflection, did it have the blog, did it have the comments, was it creative, was the French good, and they just gave me 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And then I looked at the numbers and then I decided on the grade, so that saved me quite a bit of time. When do I start with French 1? Pretty much by the end of the first week and the beginning of the second week. Because once they learn to say hello, goodbye, how are you, I make them record a conversation and they post these. They post their recording and they can say, when you go to look at this, and I showed you a couple of the French ones, you could see that they can already ask each other, my name is, etc. So I start right from the beginning. Any other questions about the grade and the rubrics? So my practical use of the ePortfolio is probably not in the same way as it is done at many universities, where it's a showcase of student work. I also use that as a tool to make them do their work and as an alternative form of assessment. So they probably have on their ePortfolio a whole lot more than an ePortfolio that is just a showcase of the best student work. But what I plan on doing is when they get to 3 and 4, to have a separate ePortfolio where they'll choose all their best work. And that's what I'm going to start to doing this fall. Okay? So let me move on to, I got to speed up, technology. I use Weebly. I find that it's the most, oh, it jumped. It's the most user-friendly website creator. It is free, and they have a regular Weebly.com and an educationweebly.com. So I recommend if you wanted to try it out that you use the Education Weebly. The nice thing is that it can be converted, when the students are done with their classes, it can be converted to a personal website. A Weebly will convert their student account to a regular account. It's got very good support for multimedia, audio, video, lots of storage, drag and drop, option for password protection. You get free 70 accounts, so it's very easy for me as a teacher to manage the students' accounts. I receive an email for all their posts. for their comments. So if anything is appropriate, I can delete them. I don't read them all, but I scan them. Okay. Other option that we believe you could use Google Sites, but I don't think that the Google blog can, or maybe I'm wrong, can easily be integrated to ePortfolio. WordPress can do that very well, but I find WordPress are much less user-friendly than Weebly. Write uses mostly WordPress. If any of you use ePortfolio, feel free to share what tools you are using. You could use Wikispaces, but Wikispaces doesn't have a built-in blog and comments, at least that I know of. So I find that the social media aspect is important when they create a website. I just saw on the last journal from ISTE, Learning and Leading, Great Electronic Portfolio list, and they included Digication. I've never seen or heard of this, and Epsilon, and I don't know anything about that, but I thought I'd share that with you. And again, Google Sites, Prezi, I don't quite see how they could use that, but why not? And WordPress. So I just wanted to give you some options. I'm going to show you how I like Weebly and why. So here is where you could log in. You could easily create the blog, manage a student account, accept homework assignments, and keep your parents up to date. Okay, so Weebly is very education oriented. As you could see here on the left are all the tools they have. I can also see statistics. They can see their own statistics on the website. They have forms and survey, video and audio. It's again all drag and drop. Let's see what else do I have here. Here's how I manage the account. I just whited out their names, but it's very easy for me to see their name and their site. And if there's a site that is inappropriate, I can delete it. I think on Google it'd be very hard for me to manage all that. Here again, this is how I manage the comments. They can come in an email, or I can turn off email and just have them come into my box like this, and I just click approve to 20 of them, and I just scan them really quickly. Here, password. I have the option, the student doesn't, but I have the option to password protect a class or not another. So that's very easy to do. The frequently asked question has a lot of screenshots, so it's very easy for the students to learn, and they also help each other a lot. Here's a slide with screenshots on how to do things. So they really take you step by step on how to do that. Here's all the features that they have. You could see slideshow. That's the one my student used for the, I didn't even know it was there. The student teach me a lot of things. Map, you can link to a Google Map, which is really nice. Let's see what they have. Dividers, columns, search blogs, button. Let's see, here it's hard to read. HD video, okay, audio, a document. Let's see what else here. I can't read the last two. So when you get the PowerPoint, you could read these. Let's see what else here. So my challenges in doing all this is Google Translate. That's my biggest enemy. Evan said Flash and File. I don't know that it will accept Flash. That's a good question, Evan. Oh, the last two. Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you. I can read it. So Google Translate is a big issue. So what happens is I'll just take their text if I suspect it's Google Translate and put it in Google, and after time it will show up. I also use the self-assigning Blackboard to help me locate if they are plagiarists, if they are copying. And after they receive 0 on the assignments, and I notify their parents, then it helps me curb the situation. The other issue I have is, since most of it is homework, the students complain, especially the blog, they don't want to do it at home. So I think this year I am going to give them more time in class to do that than I have in the past. I only have, out of 150 so students, I only have 10 who did not have internet access. So they came during their lunchtime in my class, or I give them a little extra time in class to work on it. And I communicated with their parents that I was flexible, gave them extension on deadline, and so forth. The changes I plan to do in the future, a better integration. So someone posted the question whether they feel it's something that's extra work. Because I use the assignments from their curriculum, they don't feel that much that it's extra work, but when they blog about themselves, they feel that this is extra work. Okay? As I mentioned, I'm going to start peer evaluation. And I'm also thinking about partnering with another class in the United States so that it will no longer just be their classmates and the students at their high school seeing their work, but students at another high school. So that's something I'm thinking to do in the future. Okay. I will conclude here. We have about 10 more minutes for questions. And I'm going to switch and look at the list of questions you submitted and make sure I've addressed all of them. But feel free to ask questions or ask me to go back if I went a little fast on any particular slide if you wish. Oh, here's a question, Karima. Are students allowed to go back and modify, replace evidence? That is a very good question, Karima. I cannot verify that they have done that. So when I post the e-portfolio assignments on Blackboard, I have two info questions. Number one, they have to agree, say, I pledge and agree that I have done this. I follow the honor code and I've done all this work on my own. And number two, I understand that the evaluation of my work is done on a particular day at a particular time, and if I make changes, the teacher will not have seen these changes. So they know that, and I have to say it doesn't present too much trouble. When they do a blog post, there is a date stamp, so that takes care of that, because then I will know if they made changes. But if they are going to make some changes and improve a presentation, that's that much the better. And if they want me to regrade, I will willingly go back and regrade. But I can't do this too many times. For example, if a student receives less than a 70 on a project or an e-portfolio, they have a 50, I will go back and regrade up to a grade of 70. But if they have a grade above 70, I don't give them any extra points. Very nice, some wonderful integrated class. Thank you, Harold. Russ, do you encourage students to keep building, developing their e-portfolio after the class is over? Yes, and actually you had put that, somebody had put that question. During the summer, I went and looked, several of the students were using their e-portfolio and commented about their vacation. So they are completely in charge of their website. I have two students who graduated. One is going to become a French major at UT. And she continued working on it and is going to use that at UT, and probably, I don't know what she's going to do with it at UT, but yes. So I encourage them, but they pretty much are so proud of their work that they like to show it off to people. So good question, Russ. Do they start a new one when they go to a new class? Good question. I've only been doing this for a year, so yes. They're going to start a new website, and each student is allowed 10 sites, so they will start a new site for next class. And what I will do is I will have links from their new, let's say that they were in French 1 and they're going to French 2. So in the French 2 site, I'll require that they have a link to the French 1 site, so that anyone can go back and see the progress of their French 1 to French 2 to French 3. Excellent question. Do they keep going with the old one? No, because then I wouldn't be able to tell what is what. It would be different assignments. So no, they're going to create, and in Weebly, it clearly gives them an option to create a new site. So they'll create a new site in the same manner with all the different headers. And it won't take but 5 minutes to create that because it's very quick. They are very good at doing that now because it's so easy for them since they do it all the time. Excellent questions. Is there anything that I covered that was a little fast? If you want, I'd be happy to go and access one of the students' website. Let me just go back. Or do they keep going? Yes. All right, goodbye, Sarah. Thank you for joining us. Let me see if I can find the student website. Oops. I lost control. Oh, here we are. Oops, sorry for, I'm trying to find access to the website and see if I can go there. Oh, I can't do it from here. Hold on. Let me go access some of the websites. Okay, so I'm going to share, application share, to start sharing my desktop and see if I can link you to let's see, if I go to my PowerPoint, now let me just go link it first. Let me start it. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to go to Jessica, French 1. CCISD is the password. Let me make sure. Can you see the website, everybody? Evan, can you see the website? No, Russ said no, nobody can see it. Yeah, this is always what happened. It's, I believe I shared it correctly. Oh, I see. Maybe I'll do that.
There we go.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, it was my fault. I forgot to click on the button. Okay, so here is a French 1 student. So her introduction. If I play a video, will you be able to hear it, Evan?
It will appear a bit jumpy.
Okay, so I'm not going to play one. Here is her blog. See if it goes fast. Okay, so why is it 5:26? Oh yes, because it's in reverse chronological order. So somebody asked me when they start. So let's go back on this French 1 and see when she started, or when I started with that class, the first blog. So it's going to take a few minutes to go back and see all their blogs, because as you can see, they write a lot. October, and let's see, oh, this is it right here. So this was, again, it's the French 1. And oh, they didn't start right away, it was October 29. So not quite as soon as I thought it was. That was her first blog post. Okay? Let me just go back to Regarder. I had some problem with this class. They prepared some video skits with flip cameras, but the videos were too large and I didn't have time to encode them into smaller formats so they could upload them, so they did not get to upload their videos. But my other class were successful in doing that. Here is the comments. So the French 1 only have their comments. So I asked them on this page to gather their comments. And if I click on comments 1, it leads me to the comment they made on the other student's blog. So hopefully, I don't know if it's moving, and then you could see her comments. So I can verify that they've made these comments. Okay. I no longer see the chat, so if something is not coming through, Evan, let me know. Here's the self-reflection. Again, I asked them to date them, and they write in English, and again, it's once a month. So this is, and you'll be able to see and read all of that. And presentations, let me see what they are here. For French, it was their web quest. For this class, that was their web quest, their comments. So you'll be sure they also had a web quest on Quebec, so we put all of that. For French 1, it's in English. For the other class, it would be in French. Okay. Let's see. Let me stop sharing. Okay. Okay. I don't know if this was helpful. Okay, so yes, I see I haven't shut my video. So I hope you were able to see all of the links. But again, Evan is going to give you the PowerPoint. Access to the PowerPoint will be posted, I think, on the out web page, right? And on the LARC web page. And then you'll be able to go and click and see many of the examples that I gave you. Do we have any more questions?
Any final questions for Claire? And in the meantime, a big virtual round of applause for that fantastic presentation.
Thank you, Evan.
And if there's no more questions, I'm going to stop the recording. And before you go,